milk has the lactose, which is sugar, and that tends to spike insulin levels, and that creates more hunger. So you actually are hungry more when you are drinking milk. And curiously, I know we've been harped forever about doing low-fat everything, so now we find low-fat milk everywhere. I'm not sure if I told you about the pig farmers. There was actually a study at Harvard, and they thought that they would track and find that those that drank low-fat or skim milk or low-fat everything would lose weight, and those that didn't would gain weight. And actually the converse was true. They found that those that were drinking full-fat, or those that were consuming full-fat items, dairy or any other thing, were actually maintaining weight or losing weight, whereas those that were doing the skim milk and low-fat were gaining.
You're talking about the pig milking farmers?
Well, this was not at all surprising to the pig farmers around the nation or world, because when you want to fatten up a pig, you give him or her skim milk, because they get all excited about the sugar. All that's left is basically you've taken out the fat and everything like that would be satiating or make you feel full, and all you have is basically lactose in there. So they drink that up, and then they eat a ton. So they get really fat really fast when they drink.
I may be jumping ahead, but what you're saying is that when the fat doesn't eat, because they don't add extra milk to it, they're just taking the fat away. But what you're saying is that the fat actually has an insulin or sugar response deadening effect. Is that correct?
Right. Right. I think it's more about the satiety, right? So when you
so what you're saying is when
down,
there's more fat, then you feel fuller sooner, so then you're likely not to drink as much of the milk.
Right. When the farmers gave them whole milk or like cream or something like that, the pigs wouldn't eat, so they weren't getting fat fast enough.
Gotcha. The pigs would eat a little bit of the full fat food and go, oh, that was enough, I'm done. Whereas if they had the low fat version, they would say, oh, this is great, and just keep gobbling, and not receiving any sort of internal signals to say, that's enough, let's stop.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. Two or three other problems with dairy that I'll cover quickly. One, dairy has an acidifying effect on the body, so when we're looking at the pH balance, the more alkalizing foods tend to be the fruits and the vegetables. Animal products are acidifying, and we tend to eat too much of that, so that leads to all sorts of problems, like osteopenia, osteoporosis, things like that. Speaking of osteoporosis, there was a Harvard Nurses Health study, and everyone, just like your mom, is, drink your milk, and they found that the more milk that the nurses drank, the worse their osteoporosis problem was. So
it ain't so.
Yeah, it is so, and I can explain. They're not exactly sure why. I can explain why, given what we know. And the thing is, it is true. There is a lot of calcium in milk, in any kind of dairy product. Mm-hmm. But bone health is more than just calcium. So bones need vitamin D, magnesium, and calcium, among other things. Those are the big ones, though. So there's this channel, and the way your bones get any of these, say we're going to, we'll narrow it down to calcium and magnesium. There's sort of a one-way channel to your bones to get that in there, and they need both. So if you stuff it with calcium, there is no magnesium getting by. Magnesium we don't actually gorge ourselves on food like with magnesium. It's a smaller amount. So when in that one-way tiny little channel to get it in there, if we put too much calcium in, which milk is a beast on calcium, or any dairy product, we tend to overload our bones with calcium, and that ratio of calcium to magnesium suffers. So we need to reduce actually the calcium. I don't ever suggest taking calcium supplements, by the way, because those calcium supplements don't actually go where you want them to go all the time. So we get calcifications in our blood vessels, in our heart, and other soft tissue, and that's really bad news. There's lots of other ways to get calcium, and I'll tell you about that. But just keep in mind that stuffing your body up with calcium is not the best way to avoid osteoporosis.
Right, because of the relationship with magnesium is what you're saying.
Right. You need to have both. All right. Do you want to hear some sources of calcium then, or?
Oh yeah, just give me the top 2 or 3.
Yep, they can be found in vegetables, fish with bones, like sardines or salmon in a can, Bone broths are a great way to do it. The vegetables are bok choy, broccoli, kale, turnip greens. And then in nuts and seeds, like almonds, Brazil nuts, flax seeds, sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are amazing sources of it, and chia seeds.
Okay. And cool, that actually is really insightful. I'd say that's great stuff about dairy. Let's talk a little bit about, do you want to move to gluten?
Sure, let's move to gluten.
Let's go. So actually, before we do that, talk real quick about, so what you've said is low fat, and it's funny to me because it's literally impossible to find full fat milk anywhere. Like, I mean, sometimes I'll ask for it, and people just go, we don't have it. We don't store that.
Yeah, one of my clients was standing in line at Starbucks, and I had told her the story about the pig farmers, and she noticed that everybody who asked for skim tended to be overweight, and those that asked for full fat tended to be thinner. So she did the informal Starbucks study of that held true for her too.
And one of the things I wanted to ask was about, so if we were to say, okay, like with one of my clients, they said, I need my dairy. Like, I need my milk and my cream. I need milk and my coffee. So what I told them was use full-fat whipping cream and just add a little bit, just the tiniest bit, and then stir that around, taste that, and keep adding it to taste.